Okay, fine. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you all to today's webinar conducted by onlinetaxupdate.com. Online Tax Update is a website which shares recent update in GST, GST Council meeting recommendation, budget updates, GST in media, articles on important topic, judgment, etc. It has a note section as well, where GST law is presented in a simple language for professionals, taxpayer, knowledge seeker to learn GST in a simple way. It has a section-wise notes and judgment analysis as well under the title Logics. Online Tax Update also shares newsletter on a very nominal fees. The subscription link will be given in the PPT and YouTube link as well. We hope it will help you in your GST compliance. So let us go to the webinar now. Today's topic of webinar is GST notice, reason for receiving it and how do we reply to them. And today's our faculty is Mr. CA D. Shiva Roopa Ganesh ji. So we warmly welcome Shiva Roopa Ganesh sir to this webinar and thanks for giving the time for the attendees.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
To give a brief information about sir, sir is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India and he is practicing CA since 2020 and he is a BCom graduate from PSG College of Arts and Science, passed in the year 2018, passed all three levels of CA in first attempt. And here he has also got the Best Speaker Award from Bangalore branch of ICAI as a part of orientation program conducted by ICAI. He is mentoring a startup company recognized by DPIIT of Ministry of Commerce. He also holds a certificate from Niryat Bandhu under DGFT on import and export management. He is also part of six-member committee member managing committee of ICAI branch at Sivagasi for the period 2023 to 2025. So, without taking much time, let us go to the session. After the end of the session, you can raise your queries. And meanwhile, if you have any query, you can message in the chat box or you can raise your hand. Now, I would like to request CA D. Shivrappa Ganeshji to take over the session. Over to you, Shiva sir.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you for organizing such a beautiful program, sir. Thank you. So today's topic will be GST notices, why we receive it and how we can handle it. Before going into the topic, I have a beautiful case law. This is from Calcutta High Court. The case law is DYM Auto World versus Assistant Commissioner of GST. This is actually a very, very interesting case law. We can never use this in any of our replies to notices, but this shows that how serious the law is and what is the gravity of the law, how a law can impact a taxpayer. This case law will show how powerful the law is. So what happened in this case law was, during the year 2020, there was a taxpayer. His business was affected by COVID, as like any other businessman. So what the taxpayer did was, he took some serious step and he attempted suicide. Fortunately or unfortunately, he was unsuccessful in that attempt also, and he was saved. He was given some medical treatment, and the legal situation surrounding suicide is that attempting suicide is a crime as per Indian law. So whenever someone attempts suicide, they will not just treat him and leave out. What they will do is, they'll give him some counseling, and then there will be some legal issues. You have to face all that, and then you have to come out. So this man also, what happened was, he underwent all these stresses. He underwent medical counseling. He underwent legal scrutiny, and then he came out. For that, it took some 6 to 7 months. In GST, there is a beautiful law. If you don't file your GST returns for more than 6 months, your GST RC can be cancelled. So after 7 to 8 months, this guy came out and he was logging into his GST portal, and to his surprise, he found that his GST RC was cancelled. So aggrieved by this decision, he was under so much stress, and he was aggrieved by this decision. He thought that, I have committed suicide and I have been through so much ordeal in my life for these past 6 to 7 months. The GST department has ruthlessly cancelled my GST RC. So he thought that he should go to the court. So he went to the Calcutta High Court, and there he got a beautiful judgment. What the court said was, the department has cancelled your RC. We agree that you have been under so much stress and your RC should not be cancelled. We agree that. But for availing that, for availing this benefit, you have not filed a return for more than 6 months. So legally your RC can be cancelled. Since you are under so much stress, As a court, we believe that some sort of relaxation should be given to you. So what the court said was, in order to avail the benefit to restore your GST RC, you have some dues, tax dues pending for the 6 months. You have made some sales, you have some tax dues pending, and you are going to pay that late, and you are going to file the return lately now. So the court said that if you can pay all those dues along with interest, along with penalty, along with late fee, you can avail the benefit of restoring your GST RC. Else your GST RC should be cancelled. There is no respect for you. This is the judgment given by the court. This is not some interpretation by some officer in the department or by some chartered accountant. This is the judgment that people are getting in the court. So what I want to say through this case law is that the law is so strict and it has to be followed in letter and spirit. And the officers under GST, they are actually so powerful. So in the form that was shared, the Google form that was shared with people before entering to this meeting, some people have asked me, what will happen if I don't reply to a notice? Is there any issue? Can I afford to not reply to the notice? If you ask me, I'll say that GST law has given officers enormous powers. You cannot play with any officers by not replying to a notice unless you have the capability to go to the court for any issue. If you have the capability to approach the court for any issue, we can just ignore the officers in case if he gives you some absurd notices. In other cases, in case of small, medium practitioners and small and medium businesses, even though if the officer is giving you absurd notices, you have the best shot to rectify the errors and solve the problems at the adjudication stage with the proper officer. If you have the capability to go to the court, yes, you can go to the court, it will not be an issue. If you don't have the capability to go to the court, you only can go through the legal appeals tribunals and you don't have enough resources to go to the court. The best shot for you to solve your problems will be with the adjudicating officer, because I'll tell you one example. Imagine an officer gives you some absurd notice. He tells you that, my name is Shiva Roopa Ganesh, right? So he tells me that, Shiva Roopa Ganesh, your name is Shiva Roopa Ganesh. I don't like your name. So you have a GST number. I'm going to give you a show cause notice, and I will say in the show cause notice that Shiva Roopa Ganesh just to pay rupees 100 crores as tax demand, and then he's going to give the show cause notice to me in my GST portal just by saying this one line: Shiva Roopa Ganesh pay rupees 100 crores as tax. So he's going to give this line. I'm replying to him, and then he is passing an order saying that pay rupees 1000 crores, just 4 words. Okay, he's just putting these 4 words in the order, and then he's uploading it in the portal. Imagine this GST portal, as of now, the GST portal and the GST system as of now has no mechanism to check whether the order is legally correct, whether the officer has observed all the procedures that has been given in the GST law or not. The GST portal as of now has no mechanism to check anything. If an officer passes an order against you with just 4 words in the GST portal, it very well creates a demand for 100 crores in the GST portal, and within 3 months that 100 crores will be due for recovery. So the officers are so powerful under GST. Yes, there are some remedies. You can go and complain to commissioner. You can run pillar to post to some senior officials. If those senior officials, if they they give you some, if they intend to give you some respite, you will be saved. Else, that 100 crores is very well recoverable. And in such cases, in case if the officer has passed some orders which is absurd or which is legally wrong, as a taxpayer, we have only 3 options. First thing is rectification. Why I am taking this first and then coming to the notice part second is that because for the financial year 2017-18, already most of us might have got orders, and those orders would have been passed in the tax period December 2023, and any action that you want to take with regard to that order can be taken only within 3 months, that is till March end. After that, you cannot do anything with an order. You can either go to the court or you can pay the demand. So first thing is, in case if you got any order and if you feel that you have the law on your side and you have followed the laws, there are only 3 options available to you. The first one is you can go for rectification under section 161. Rectification is nothing but saying to the officer that, officer, you have made some error which is apparent on face on records. So please rectify the order and pass another rectified order by following the due process of law. So if you give an application for rectification, the officer who passed that observed order will be created some task, and he has to decide whether he wants to rectify the order or he wants to leave the order as such. And the section 161 uses the word the officer may. It is at this option. The officer can either rectify it or he can choose that the order stays. So this might be effective if the officer himself feels that he has done a mistake and that order is observed and he wants to rectify it. Else, rectification is not going to save us. The next option we have is appeals. Appeal is good actually. Appeal is what happens in appeal is you will just make a request to the commissioner that his subordinate has passed some orders which are violative of the GST laws. You can just make an application to the commissioner. In state, it is mostly going to deputy commissioners. So you have to make an application to them. One bad thing about appeals in GST law is one bad and good thing. You can take it both bad and for good this thing. What is the problem is that whenever you go for appeals under GST, 10% of the disputed tax must be paid before your appeal can be admitted. So what happens in my case? The officer had told me to pay me 100 crores just because he doesn't like me. In that case, if I have to file an appeal against that order, I have to pay 10 crores before filing the appeal. Imagine how many businessmen can afford to take 10 crores out of their business just for the sake of fighting a legal battle. So that is not possible in case of high-pitched orders. So that is one of the disadvantage of the pre-deposit. And there is also one advantage with regard to the pre-deposits. What the section 107 says is that whenever a taxpayer pays 10% of the disputed tax, the recovery shall be stayed. The officer can say that I have to pay 100 crores. But if I pay just 10 crores, the department cannot initiate recovery for the 100 crores. They cannot attach my bank account. They cannot attach my asset. So all my assets will be saved if I pay just that 10% of the disputed tax in question. So this is both an advantage and a disadvantage. And then the third option will be you can go to the court by way of a writ. And the writ is not so easy as it is discussed everywhere, because writ has a condition that whenever there is an alternative remedy available, writ cannot be entertained in the court. For example, if you have the option of appeal, you cannot directly go to the court saying that the officer has passed an observed order. First, you have to exhaust the existing remedy under appeals, and then only you can go to the court. This is one problem. And also the courts have their discretion. In some cases, they also admit the cases where there are alternative remedies. And in some cases, they view this so strictly that whenever there is an alternative remedy, they never admit writs in the court. And also in courts, there is one more issue. The courts in many cases have told that just because if you go to the appeal, you have to pay 10% of the disputed tax to the government before getting some remedy. You cannot come to the writ just for the sake of bypassing that pre-deposit payment. The courts have held this judgment in many rulings. So courts say that in order to proceed with the procedure, you have to pay the pre-deposit, and courts have in many cases directed as such. And for the stay on recovery, only appeals section, only if you pay the 10% of the disputed tax in question to the government, your recovery is stayed. In case of rectification and writ, the recovery is not stayed. And if you decide that you have to approach the court for any litigation, you have to file two suits. One is against the order first, that the order is absurd, the order is ultravious the provisions of law. For fighting in that space, you have to file one suit. And other suit must be filed to get a stay on recovery for that order. Because just because you have filed a case in the court, the recovery is not automatically stayed. So you have to file two suits, and in both the suit, if you get a favorable order, you will be absolved from the order passed by the officer. So yeah, this is the summary of what I have explained till now. For appeals and rectification, it has to be filed within 3 months from the date of communication of the order. And pre-deposit condition, I have told for appeal, 10% of the disputed tax in question has to be paid. And this is very important actually. 10% of the disputed tax alone shall be paid, and that is very much enough it is not necessary that you have to pay that interest, penalty, everything combined. You have to only pay the 10% disputed tax for the purpose of filing the appeals and to get the stay on recovery. And in case if you admit any amount that is given in the notice, that admitted amount must be paid along with interest, late fee, penalty, everything has to be paid. But in case you are disputing the demand created by the officer, only 10% of the disputed tax alone shall be paid and an appeal can be filed. And appeal should be filed within 3 months, and 1 month delay can be condoned by the commissioner. If it is delayed more than 1 month, even the commissioner, if he is well intended and he wants to admit your appeal, he does not have the power to condone the delay. So the maximum time limit up to which the commissioner can condone the delay is just 1 month. And if you are delaying the appeal by more than 4 months, you will not get any respite at the commissioner level. You have to go to the court or tribunal. Our tribunal is not formed yet. People are saying that it will be formed by July or June 2024. Once the tribunal is formed, you can approach the tribunals or court for remedy in case if there is delay in filing appeal more than 4 months. And yeah, I have told that court for stay on recovery, you have to file a separate suit. And for rectification also, when we as a taxpayer want to file a rectification application, we have 3 months time. And if the officer on his own motive want to rectify the order, if he himself feels that, oh, this is not a correct order, there are some errors apparent on face of records, he can rectify it within 6 months from the date of order. So now that is for the, till now I have spoken about what you have to do when you have got an order. That order which is ultra vires the law or which you don't agree with the views taken by the officer. Now let's see what all should be done at the stage of handling the notices. So whenever we get a notice, our instinctive thing will be, our thought will be to just attack the point that the officer raised. For example, if the officer says that there is a difference in ITC between 2A and 3B, we just automatically think that no, there is no difference between 2A and 3B. No, I have the circular. This is what instinctively we feel. But it is very, very important that before going into the main point or just attacking the grounds that the officer has raised, it is very, very important that we have to check some basic 6 to 7 points. And if the officer has violated something, it is very, very important that you have to mention it in the notice at the earliest notice given by the officer, not at the later point of time. For example, the officer usually gives ASMT 10, DRC 01A, and then they give show cause notice. It is very important that whenever there is a violation of these 7 to 8 points, immediately when there is a violation, you have to raise it in your reply. So let's go through it. First thing is personal hearing. Section 75 says that whenever there is a request from the assessee for personal hearing, the officer is bound to give it. And whenever the officer is contemplating an adverse order against the assessee, he should give a personal hearing. So this is the rule given in the section. But in most cases, they mechanically give them personal hearing notices. So that is okay. If there is a personal hearing, you have to attend. But there are some possibility that an officer may choose to pass an order without following the due process given in the law, without giving personal hearing. And if such an order is passed, you can be very happy that it will be easily won in appeals, because even though it is very much evident that an assessee has not followed the law and the tax is duly recoverable, the officer cannot as such recover it. He has to follow the due process given in the law. When an officer passes any order which is in which the due process is not followed, due principle of natural justice is not followed, the principle of offering the opportunity of being heard is not followed, that order, that the order passed without following the due process, cannot be validated in any higher forum. The commissioner of appeals cannot say that you have already done a mistake, the amount is actually recoverable. Since because the officer has not followed the procedure, it will not be invalid. Like that, the commissioner cannot take a stand. Even though it is on the face that the amount is recoverable, due process must be followed. So always request for personal hearing in any notices that you give, because in case if the officer does not give personal hearing, it will be a strong grounds for you to contend in future stages. And also, even though if you don't request, if the officer is going to pass an adverse order, he has to give you personal hearing. But on the safer side, it is better to request for personal hearing in every reply that we give to the officer. Next thing, Objection to section 74. The officers, most of the time in the GST, they don't know that there is an existence of section 73. The difference between section 73 and 74 is that 73 is for recovery of demands and dues in normal cases. 74 is for recovery of demands and dues where there is fraud, willful misstatement, and suppression. Officers, in most of the cases, always invoke section 74. In GST, there is something very, very interesting. When it comes to ITC, input tax credit, an officer can say anything. He can say that all the ITC that you availed is ineligible. Prove to me with enough documents that your ITC is eligible, I will give you the ITC, else I'm going to reject everything. The officer has the right to say when it comes to input tax credit. In any cases other than input tax credit, it is the responsibility of the officer to prove that there is some evasion. For example, an officer cannot as such say that you have made a sale, you have not generated e-way bill. This is a violation. The officer cannot as such say that because e-way bill provisions clearly say that the one who causes the movement of the good should create e-way bill. It is not the responsibility of the seller, the one who causes the movement. Sometimes it happens that the recipient may come to my place and then he may move the goods from my place to his place. It is the responsibility of the recipient to create the e-way bill. An officer, just because I have made a sale, cannot say that, oh, he has made a sale, he has to create the e-way bill. If he is not creating the e-way bill, I am imposing it. No, it is not legally correct. Whenever any objection is raised by the officer for any point other than input tax credit. In input tax credit, yes, he can say any story he wants. When it comes to points other than input tax credit, he has to prove with enough documents that there is some evasion, else it does not stand the legal test. So when it comes to section 74, why most officers are invoking section 74, where they can invoke the section 73, which is the normal question. Instead of invoking 73, they are mostly invoking 74. Why? Because at present at GST, what happens is the department is overloaded. What happens is they just issue all notices by the end of the month. For example, for the financial year 2017, all orders would have been passed by December 31st and all notices would have been given 3 months before, September 30. So only in the last month they are working. So they don't want to take a chance that in case if that due date is missed, that proceedings will be invalid. In section 74, an extended period is given. Under section 73, the officer can give notices and orders only till 3 years from the due date of filing annual return. And under section 74, they have 5 years. So just for being cautious and to not miss the due dates, they always invoke section 74. So whenever section 74 is invoked, you can quote that instruction number 5/2023, which was given by the CBIC. In that, the CBIC has quoted a Supreme Court case law, and CBIC has told the officers that merely for any difference like 1 versus 3B, any difference, don't invoke section 74. Section 74 has to be invoked in specific circumstances only where there is fraud, willful misstatement, and suppression. Else, section 74 cannot be invoked. So, in case section 74 is invoked in the notice, make sure that you contest against it and say that you object to issuance of notice under section 74 and you request the officer to issue the notice under section 73. This objection shall be recorded in each and every reply. Then the third point is the assessee has all the right to ask the officer for the relied upon documents. Most of the notices, when it comes to 2A versus 3B, the officer, they just give a tabular column in the notice saying that your ITC as per 3B is this, your ITC as per 2A is this. No one knows. I actually know. I actually don't know. I have been replying to some hundreds of notices. In each and every notice, I actually fail to understand from where the officers are getting the figures for GST or 2A figures. Because when we download GST or 2A from the portal, the figure is completely different. And in many cases, there is no difference at all. The officers are getting the 2A figure from somewhere in their report. They see in their GST portal, they don't have the breakup for that. Only we, assessee, can take the invoices breakup for that. They just have the tabular column in their portal, which is that month-wise 3B ITC availed is this, 2A ITC is this, difference is this. They don't have the breakup for it. Whenever they don't provide the relied upon documents, they have to give. Your invoices in 2A is this. They have to give, and you have the right to ask. And you have to ask it at the earliest stage. In whichever stage the notice is issued, you have to ask it to the officer. If you have recorded that in your reply, it will be easier for you to contest your grounds in the appeal stages in case the officer passes an adverse ground. So record that you want to know the relied upon documents in every reply that you give to the officer. Next thing to check is, whenever you get the notice, don't immediately jump to write a reply. First, see that whether the time limit for issuing the notice is there, whether the notice has been issued before the time limit, and whether whenever an officer passes an order, also you have to check whether the order has been passed before the time limit, because this is a very, very, very serious thing. Whenever an officer issues a notice beyond the time limit, whenever the time limit has expired and an officer has issued a notice, and you are not mentioning that in your reply, or without replying it, you have replied to the officer saying that I'll produce the documents in 10 days, I'll produce the documents in 20 days. If you are replying it to the officer, that notice automatically becomes valid. This is given in section 160. Whenever an assessee has any reservation with the method of serving notice or anything contained in the notice, he has to raise it at the earliest time possible. And if he has not raised that in the earliest time possible, he cannot call it into question at the later point in time. In appeals, if you go also, you cannot tell to the commissioner that the time limit has expired. The commissioner will be asking, you have already participated in the proceedings. You cannot raise that point right now. Whenever you get a notice, make sure that the time limit is followed and the notice is issued within the time limit. For example, if you get any notice for financial year 17-18 now, under section 73, it is not valid, because the time limit for issuing notice under 73 for financial 17-18 is already over. So you have to make sure that the time limit is followed. And if an officer gives a notice for 17-18 quoting 74, you have to object and ask him why 74 is invoked, what is the fraud, what is the willful misstatement, what is the suppression that you have done. Only after asking those questions, you can proceed to reply to the notice given by the officer. The fifth point is contesting irrational quantification. Actually, I have personally seen one such case. What happened was the officer just totaled everything in GST or 2A. The taxable value, he just added everything in GST or 2A. And then he subtracted the 2A figure with purchase values in the P&L. This is for the financial year 17-18. So in 17-18, 2A is for the period from July to March. And the P&L will be for the period from April to March. So 3 months difference will be automatically there. And also that concern is dealing in exempt goods. So when there are exempt goods, those things will not be reflected in 2A because the exempt people will be showing is at a total as an exempt sales. So there are so many reasons for difference between the taxable value in GST or 2A and profit and loss account. That officer just subtracted these two and he told that tax at 18% has to be paid by the assessee, and it quantified to amount some 11 crores for the assessee. So these type of irrational quantification an officer can never do. The demand that is raised upon the assessee can never be based on estimates and guesswork. And also I have seen so many notices in which they say that the stock as per stock register is this, stock as on date is this, your purchase is this, sales is this, GP is this. No. These type of stories and guessworks cannot create a demand on the assessee. In GST, the taxable event is supply. Only when there is a supply, tax is payable. When there is no supply, the officer can tell whatever the story that he wants. It does not stand the legal test. Only if you have damning evidence to show that you have cleared goods without paying taxes or you have made supply without paying taxes, he can create a demand on you. If there is no evidence with the officer, there is no demand, and you have to contest those irrational quantifications in the notice itself. And in many cases, officers also say that I have got these type of notices for mining people. What happens is in mining people, they just give a record of the stones or quarry minerals that is mined to the mining department. They get that information from the department and they say that 1 ton should be sold for 10,000 rupees. So your total turnover should be this, but you have only shown the turnover of this. No, that is not the work of the officer. The officer cannot dictate the sale price of my commodity. I may even sell my product at a loss. I'll buy for 100 rupees and sell for 1 rupee. If I pay GST on rupees 1, it is well and good for the officer. And this holds good when it is sold to a distinct person. If you sell for a related person, you cannot take this stand. There are some specific valuation rules which you have to follow. But when you are selling to someone unrelated, you can even sell for rupees 1. It is well and good. The officer cannot question the basis of valuation of your product. So whenever an officer issues notice by quantifying the demand on some calculation or some guesswork, you have to contest it at the time of notice itself. This is section 160, which says that service of any notice, order, communication shall not be called in question if the notice, order, or communication, as the case may be, has already been acted upon by the person to whom it is issued, or where such notice has not been called in question at or in the earlier proceedings commenced, continued, finalized pursuant to such notice, order, or communication. So this section protects the officer when he is not following the due process given in the law. So whenever the due process is not followed by the officer, you have to call that in question at the earliest stage possible. So make sure that you record all the points given in the previous slide in all your replies. And the time limit for passing the orders, as I have already told you, under section 73, where there is no willful misstatement, fraud, or suppression, it has to be passed within 3 years from the due date of annual return for that period, and notice for that order should be issued before 3 months. And in the case of willful misstatement, fraud, and suppression, it can be passed up to 5 years from the date of annual return, and notice shall be passed, should be served before 6 months. Yeah, this is something important. Whenever you get a notice and you see that actually you have made a mistake, actually something is legally payable, make sure that you pay it as early as possible, because when you don't have the enough documents and you don't have the law by your side, it is very, very tough to win the case in appeal stages. So when you don't have the documents and when you don't have the law by your side and you have made a genuine mistake, make sure that you pay the taxes as early as possible, because there are some concessions given in the penalty when you make the payment.
They're not audible. I think some stuck up.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? I lost the connection, it seems.
Yeah, for 2-3 seconds, I think.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, now it is audible, but during this 2-3
Yes,
minute seconds, so it was not audible.
Shall I start this slide from the first, sir? Will it be good, sir, or should I come from the previous slide?
No, it is good. If you start from this slide, it's better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I'll start from this slide. Yeah. So yes, whenever you get a notice and if you feel that the tax is genuinely payable, whenever you don't have the law by your side or you have made a genuine mistake, make sure that
Sir, again stuck up. Hello, sir. Again stuck up.
yes. 1 minute, sir. I'll change the internet connection. 1 minute.
Fine. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now it's audible, sir.
Yeah, it is audible now. Yes.
Okay, I'll continue. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the law gives some concession and penalty. Whenever the show cause notice is issued and the tax is paid, tax along with interest is paid. It is not enough if you pay the tax alone. You have to pay the tax plus interest within 30 days of the show cause notice. No penalty will be levied on you. You can very well ask the officer for this concession whenever you have paid the tax plus interest within 30 days. And whenever the order is issued, there is no concession when it comes to section 73. And when it comes to section 74, the relief is graded. Before issue of show cause notice, you have to pay 15% of the taxes penalty. Show cause notice plus 30 days, you have to pay 25% of the taxes penalty. Order plus 30 days, 50% of the taxes penalty. And after 29 days of the order, you have to pay 100% of the taxes penalty. So whenever you come to know that there is some genuine mistake, better to pay it off with interest, so you can save yourself on the penalty. So you have to pay along with interest. Paying the tax alone is not enough. You have to pay those along with interest to avail this benefit given in the law. Now coming to the important point, common notices and solutions. Most of the queries our sir online tax updates people actually shared with me. Most of the queries are based on how to handle when the notices are issued for the difference in 2A versus 3B. So 2A versus 3B is as of now so settled, sir. There is nothing to think much on outside the boxes and all. It is so settled. Many court cases have told that a demand cannot be raised on the assessee only because the invoices are not reflected in 2A for the financial year 17-18 and 18-19. That is well and good. If you want to get this kind of relief, you have to go to the court. So what can we do when as a MSME taxpayer or a small time practitioner, what can we do? You can follow the procedures given in the circular 183, which states that whenever certain invoices are not reflected in your GST or 2A for the financial year 17-18 and 18-19, what you have to do is you have to take a copy of invoices which are not reflected in 2A, and then you have to get the certificate from the supplier saying that he has actually made those supplies to you, he has filed the return and paid the taxes to the government, and those things are done before the time limit given in section 16 subsection 4. If you can get this certificate from the supplier, and if you can attach the invoices along with those certificate, and if you present to your officer, well and good. 17-18 demands are mostly getting resolved if you give these documents to the officer, and when we quote section 183. And when invoices from a single supplier carrying ITC balance of more than 5 lakhs in a financial year is not reflected in 2A, a chartered accountant must certify that that supplier has supplied and he has paid taxes and he has complied with all those things before the timeline given in section 64. A CA must certify it, and that CA certificate must be attached along with the invoices, and that can be produced to the department, and the matter will be solved for the financial year 17-18 and 18-19. And when it comes to the further period till 1st January 2022, when it comes to those period till that, what you should do is the department said that yes, it's okay. You can just give the certificate and invoice it is okay. But in October 2019, they introduced something called as Rule 36 subsection 4, which told that the ITC availed by the taxpayer in GST or 3B cannot exceed 20% of the ITC reflected in GST or 2A. So what the department told was, from those period, October 2019 to 1st January 2022, they actually gradedly reduced it. For example, from October 2019 to 1st January 2020, they told that 20% of the ITC can be availed in excess than that is reflected in 2A. And from 1st January 2020 to 1st January 2021, they told that 10% of the ITC can be availed in excess. And from 1st January 2021 to 22, they told that 5% can be availed in excess. And on 1st January 2022, they told that you cannot avail anything in excess. Only if it is reflected in GST or 2B, you can avail the ITC, else don't avail the ITC. This was the legal background behind this. So what the department has said now is, we gave you some concession by way of availing some excess ITC in your 3B than that is reflected in 2A. You can avail that, and only for that portion, if that is not reflected in 2A, you can give the certificate and invoices. If there are some ITC that you have availed, which is more than the 20%, that is, you have availed some 25% more ITC, that 5% is actually ineligible as per the department. But going by the legal grounds, that invoices must be reflected in GST or 2B, got the legal sanctity only on 1st January 2022, the date on which the act was amended to say that the invoices must be communicated to the recipient by way of 2B. Before that, there was no legal backing for this rule. So if you go to the court and if you have enough documents, you can still get a favorable judgment. And on the adjudication side, only if you follow the things that is given in the circular, you will get a favorable order. And having said this, I also want to say there is one case law called as Malik Traders case law. I think it is from Allahabad High Court. So this you cannot use in your place. This is against the taxpayer. What the court said was, this was for the financial year 17-18 and 18-18. Malik Traders approached the High Court. They told that demand has been solely raised on 2A versus 3B. This is ultra vires the law. I should not be made to pay amount just because the invoices are not reflected in 2A. He just went to the court. What the court said was, well and good, demand cannot be raised on you merely because the invoices are not reflected in 2A. Well and good. But you have to present the documents to show that you have actually made the payment. You have the invoices. Malik traders presented these both to the court. They told that we have actually made the payment and we have the invoices. And the third condition was actual receipt of goods and services. The court said that well and good, you have satisfied all the condition. Where is the actual receipt of goods and services? How can you prove it to me? Do you have the toll receipt, acknowledgement for receiving the goods, lorry receipts, stock inward entry, and which is signed by some officers in your business days? The court asked for these 4 documents, and since the Malik traders cannot produce these documents, the demand was confirmed upon them. No relief was given to the Malik traders in Allahabad High Court case law. So, the one of the toughest thing to prove in GST is the actual receipt of goods condition. Whenever you are receiving goods, you have to make sure that you have enough documents to show that the goods are actually received. So in many companies, what they are doing now is they are having a CCTV at the place where the goods are being unloaded. They show the invoice copy whenever it comes. They show the invoice in front of camera, and then they begin the unloading so that the lorry number, the actual receipt of goods, everything is recorded, and then they save the recording till the end of the period, the 5 years from the date of annual return. They just save those recording to prove the actual receipt of goods. Proving the actual receipt of goods is the toughest condition in GST. So make sure that you have enough documents for that, because GST is a document-based law. You might have followed everything given in the law, but if you don't have enough documents to prove it, you might be forced to pay some taxes and interest. So make sure that you have all the documents to prove that you have actually received the goods. Next 2 things I'll take together. 1 versus 3B difference was point of contention for first 3 years. First 3 years, so many notices were given for 1 versus 3B. Technically, there must be no difference between 1 and 3B because both are sales. 1 is also showing sales, 3B is also showing sales. Technically, there must be no difference. And from 1st January 2022, the law has also been amended to say that whenever there is a 1 versus 3B difference, it is liable for direct recovery. No notices, no fighting with the taxpayer and all. The department has the power to directly initiate recovery when there is 1 versus 3B difference after 1st January 2022. Before 1st January 2022, you can try producing your sales register, GSTR 9, income tax returns, and then try to prove to the officer that actually there is no supply. Because as I told earlier, in GST, the point of taxation is supply. When there is no supply, there is no tax. So you can produce the bank statement and all the sales register to the department to prove that there is no sales, so that you can be absolved from the liability if case it is raised based on 1 versus 3B inadvertent errors. If there are errors and if the tax are really payable, better to pay it off. Better to pay it off because the cost of non-compliance will be so much higher. You will get the judgment in the commissioner appeal and tribunal appeal after some 6 to 7 years. You have to pay 18% interest on it. So it is not feasible. If it is payable, pay it off. If it is a genuine mistake, you can just produce the sales register and other documents to the department to prove that actually there is no sales. And the next point is 2A versus 3B only. What happens is some of the suppliers inadvertently show their credit note against our name. Actually, there would have been no sales return and all. But some taxpayer might have issued credit note against my name, and the department will be demanding tax from me, saying that my 2A figure is lesser than my 3B ITC. In such cases, when it comes to credit note, actually there is an anomaly in GST law. A credit note issuer can issue credit note to anyone without any repercussions. Section 15 of the GST Act says that whenever you are giving a discount and you are issuing credit note, you have to get a confirmation from the recipient of the credit note that he will reverse the ITC. You have to get a confirmation. That is only for post-sale discount. And in case of sale return and other things, for issuing credit note, the issuer of credit note has no liability. He can as such issue credit note. The liability will fall on the recipient of the credit note because his ITC in 2B will be reduced and the demand will be raised upon that recipient. This is actually an anomaly in GST law. This has to be rectified earlier. As of now, I don't know whether it has become an issue or whether it has been escalated or so much, but this is actually a genuine issue in GST as of now. So in case if someone is issuing credit note against your name, and if you see some unwarranted credit notes in your 2B, just write a letter to the supplier and to the department as soon as you see such entries in your 2B, so that you will be safeguarded in the future. E-way bill, I have already touched upon something that the officer, since because I have made a sale, cannot say that I have caused the movement of the goods. He has to prove if I have to movement or if I have moved the goods, or you can just give a reply that the recipient has moved the goods. And e-waybill, there is one beautiful point in section rule number 138 sub rule 14. There is a beautiful point which says that e-waybill has to be generated when there are a movement of goods, well and good. But when the movement is through a non-motorized conveyance, like buffalo cart or what you say, talluvendi they say, right? When it is moved by hands, those things, when there is no motor in the vehicle which moves the goods, e-waybill need not be generated. Only when you are moving the goods which has a motor, e-waybill has to be generated. So if the sales are made within the same state or some nearby town, you can very well say that the goods have been moved through non-motorized conveyance. Motorized conveyance was not used for the transport, so that you can be absolved of this liability. And on the other side, I would say that for every sale, irrespective of the limit 50,000 or 1 lakh, generate e-waybills, because department is accepting e-waybills as a proof for a receipt of goods. So if e-waybills generated, you can very well show that for a receipt of goods, department is as of now accepting. Actually, it is not an evidence, but they are working with it. If we are saying that we have generated e-waybill, they are very well accepting it. So better to generate e-waybill for everything. If you have some issues saying that e-waybill is not generated, you can very well say that we have moved it through non-motorized conveyance or the recipient has moved the goods. You can very well say that. The next thing is, whenever they see transportation charges, they say you are liable to reverse charge. No, all transportation charges are not liable to reverse charge. Till July 2022, there was an exemption that when the freight amount charged by the supplier is less than rupees 750, it is exempt. So if the freight charges are less than 750, it is exempt till July 2022. After July 2022, that exemption was removed. So even if the freight charge of 1 rupee is received, it is liable to RCM after July 2022. Before July 2022, there was this exemption. And the GST law places a very specific condition to say that freights are liable to RCM. It has to satisfy two conditions. One is the transportation should have been by road. And the other thing is, they should issue a consignment note by whatever name called. Previously in service tax era, consignment note was defined, which says that consignment note is a serially numbered document. They give a note saying what are the goods received. They give a note like that. That note is called consignment note as per the service tax era. In GST, what they have told is the goods transport agency must issue a consignment note by whatever name called. So they have just diluted it. So if the transporter gives you any document and the goods are being transported by the road, and the transporter is not paying tax under forward charge mechanism, you have to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism. So this is for freight. And next thing is rule 86B. 1% of the output tax must be paid in cash. If you have not paid it, your GST RC can also be cancelled by the department. So make sure that you follow this. If you have not followed it, you can pay the amount in cash and get the refund of the input tax credit as credit. You can apply for refund, because most people feel that we have to pay. If you have followed the law at the time of filing 3B, at least you would have had the ITC credit balance in the portal. So when the notice is issued, if you pay, you can very well apply for the refund of the ITC, and then you can get that ITC in your portal. Next thing they are checking is credit by creditor balance, because in GST Act, payment should be made to the supplier within 180 days. If you are going to pay more than 180 days, you have to reverse that ITC along with the interest, and then you can re-avail the ITC whenever you are making the payment to the supplier. So make sure that the creditor payment is done within 180 days. Else you have to reverse it. Now a beautiful circular 170 has been given. In that the proper method to reverse these ITC, all those are specified. I'll touch upon it in my next slide. Now let's see. As of now, I have told you. Please explain the difference between 2 years as per notification 49. Yes, sir. I'll take up the questions after my session. 1 minute. Future notices. So as of now, I have told what are the notices that we are receiving. In future, what are the notices that you may receive? As of now, the GST department has not raised so many notices on Rule 42 and 43. Whenever you are making an exempt sale, you have to reverse the common ITC. Only the common ITC must be reversed, not all the ITC. Goods that are exclusively used for taxable supplies, you can avail the ITC. Goods that are exclusively used for exempt supplies, you cannot avail the ITC. There are some services and goods which are used both for taxable and exempt, like audit fee, rent payment, packing materials may be used for both. Those ITC must be reversed proportionately as per Rule 42 and 43. Make sure that it is being followed. And then the huge round of notices in future will definitely be based on electronic credit reversal and reclaim statement. What happens is, most of the before the introduction of Circular 170, GST portal automatically repopulated every credit note received in 4B2. Whenever your supplier gives you a credit note, it will be auto-populated in 4B2. So what happened was, in July 2022, they issued the circular. Now, if you show any reversal in 4B2, it gets added to electronic credit reversal and reclaim statement, which is wrong. Because in that circular, the government has specifically told only 3 situations you can show reversals under 4B2, which are non-payment in 180 days, not received the goods, and supplier has not filed the 3B. In these conditions alone, you can show it in 4B2. In all other conditions, the reversal is either absolute. If it is absolute reversal, it has to be shown in 4B1. Else, the temporary, these 3 reversals alone can be shown in 4B2. And whenever you are reclaiming the balance in electronic credit reversal and reclaim statement, you will show in 4D1. And when the ITC is ineligible because of place of supply rules and 16.4, you have to show in 4D2. Make sure that you follow it. Because yes, okay, if you have taken ITC lesser than the ITC reflected in GST or 2B, legally you are not violating anything. There is no revenue loss to the government. You may win the cases in appeals and everything. But in order to avoid the litigation and to be compliant, make sure that GST or 3B ITC is furnished as per the directions given in Circular 170. Else, this may be the cause of huge litigations in future. So make sure that this is followed for every one of your claims that you are handling. And this is my last slide, because I got a query regarding summons, how to handle summons, someone has asked. So I thought that I'll include that in my slide also. So summons, when can an officer issue a summons? Are there any conditions that an assessee should be a risky assessee? The assessee is a fraudster. Whether there are any conditions for issuance of summons? The answer is no. Section 170 says that the proper, section 70 says that proper officer, whenever he considers it's necessary, he can issue summons. So what is summon? Summon means the person to whom the summon is issued should physically present himself with a prescribed set of evidences that is asked for the summon. He has to produce the document and he has to physically present himself for the summon. This is what is summon is about. And section 70 gives the proper officer all the right to issue summons in whatever circumstances he feel it is necessary. So summons are being issued left, right, and center. So the next question, as like anyone will be, what if I don't appear for summons? The consequences are really huge, really huge. First thing is GST Act. GST Act section 122 says that penalty of rupees 50,000 has to be paid. Okay, this is a monetary loss. I have 50,000. 50,000 is not an amount for me. I have 5 crores. I'll pay it off and just escape. Okay, well and good. GST Act issues only a monetary penalty, section 122, 50,000. What happens is, when you don't respect a summon, you can also be tried under Indian Penal Code. There are some punishments which are given in Indian Penal Code, which are IPC 172, absconding from service of summon. This is actually a beautiful thing. When you know that the officer is going to issue summon, you lock up your home and go to 5-month tour or 6-month tour. It means that you are absconding from service of summon. For that, you can be imprisoned for 1 month and fine of 500 can be levied upon you. And then section 173, when you are preventing the officer from affixing the summon notice, or when you are preventing the officer from doing his duty from giving you the summon, you can be arrested for, you can be imprisoned for 6 months and penalty of rupees 1,000 can be imposed upon you. Section 174, when a summon is issued and you are not obedient, you are not appearing yourself for the summon, 6-month imprisonment and 1,000 penalty can be imposed upon you. Section IPC 175, when you don't produce the documents that is asked for in the summon, 1 month imprisonment and rupees 500 can be imposed upon you. And 177, when you say false information and produce false documents at the time of summon, 6 months imprisonment and rupees 1,000 can be imposed upon you. So not appearing, I am saying that not replying to the notice itself is not an option. So not appearing for summons is definitely not an option. So it is actually a very risky bet to not appear for summons than appearing for summons. So better whenever summons are issued to you, just go and present the documents, whatever the thing that the officer asks. So that will be better. And that's it. My session is over. I'll be willing to take up any questions that is asked right now. Yeah.
So before the queryist start asking, okay.
Hi, sir.
So before the queryist ask their question, so let me give a thanks note to you. Okay, thank you,
Yes, sir.
Shiva Roopa Ganesh sir, for such a wonderful interactive session. So I
Yes,
hope
sir.
all the
Thank you, sir.
attendees have enjoyed the session. Very much
Yes, sir.
practical solution and practical queries you have taken up, and it will be definitely those queries will have been would have been faced by many participants in their day-to-day GST compliances, and these would be helpful to them. How to handle the notices, how to reply, what are the consequences, what are the content that they have to maintain in the reply. So these were very beautifully you have explained, and in depth you have covered on each and every aspects of the notice. So most of the queries I think would have been solved during the session itself. But the if any more queries there, the participants are welcome. So please raise your hand and ask your questions. Okay, or put in the chat box. So I think this hand is already raised. Muthu Krishnan sir has already raised. Okay, so sir, you can unmute yourself and you can speak. You can ask your question. You can unmute yourself, sir. You are still in mute status. You can unmute.
வணக்கம் சார்.
Yes, sir.
சார் நீங்க சொல்லி கொடுத்தது ரொம்ப நல்லா இருந்துச்சு கேட்க.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, sir.
ஆமா, எல்லாமே நீங்க சொல்ற சிச்சுவேஷன் எல்லாமே நாங்க அனுபவிச்சுட்டு இருக்கோம். அதுபோக ஆபீசர் சைட்லயும் எதுக்காண்டி 74ல நோட்டீஸ் வைக்காங்க அந்த இதுவும் நீங்க சொல்லி கொடுத்ததுனால அந்த ஆபீசர் மேல உள்ள கோபமும் கொஞ்சம் குறைஞ்சிருக்கு. ஏன்னா அந்த ஆபீசருடைய கட்டாயம் அந்த 17-18ல 74ல போட்டா தான் அந்த டைம் லிமிட் வருங்கிறதுனால போட்டிருக்காங்க. ஏன் நல்ல ஆபீசரை ஏன் இப்படி போட்டாங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லி அவர் மேல கொஞ்சம் வருத்தமா இருந்துச்சு. உங்க மீட்டிங் கேட்டோம்னா அந்த வருத்தம் கொஞ்சம் தெளிவா புரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டேன். ரொம்ப நல்லா இருக்கு.
தேங்க்யூ சார். தேங்க்யூ சார். Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Next to this, Manisha ma'am has raised a query. Okay, so you can unmute. I have allowed you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Sir, I want to ask, in the notice, the officer gives the GST 2A mismatch and differential liability, but that 2A figures, how they are arrived, actually that is not matching with the any of the things, that is portal 2A or whatever in table 8A 9 of GSTR 9. The 2A what figures they give, they are not matching with any of the 2A available on the portal or 2A in table 9, anything. So how can we find the difference and take a call that this ledger confirmation will be required for this party?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, yes, ma'am. What happens is, ma'am, in a GST portal, when you go to the services return, tax liability and ITC comparison, there will be a tab, ma'am. When you open that tab,
yeah,
you will
but
get
that is also not matching. Like recently, I have received one notice. But
Yes, that is
that all of the three, like that GST or 2A, if we compile for the whole year, then
that is the issue. Because officers,
table 8 not matching.
Yeah, officers actually don't have access to our 2A, ma'am. They only have access to that table. So what happens is they just raise the notice based on the table. That table won't match with the GST or 2A which you download from the GST portal. So what happens is whenever a notice is issued, you prepare a new table, ma'am. You prepare a new table. Say that my 3B ITC is this. my 2A ITC is this as per the 2A downloaded from the portal, and you attach the 2A along with the reply that you submit to the officer. And in case if there is any excess ITC available in 3B, you can just mark out the invoices, and then you can produce the documents as per circular 183 or 193. So that is the procedure that can be followed.
So you basically suggest the take a 2A at the time when notice is issued and do the fresh reco.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, I think Yelumalai sir has raised your hand. So, sir, you can raise your hand. You can unmute yourself. I can ask your question. Can you unmute yourself, sir?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Sir, I am one of the follower. Your presentation previously sent WhatsApp or Twitter.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, one thing, sir. Notice from ASM return from Central that notice not mentioned the DIN number. It is valid or invalid, sir?
Sir. Regarding DIN number, sir. Whenever any notice is issued by Central, if your assessee is falling under Central jurisdiction, only the center has implemented a DIN number, sir. So when notices are issued by the center and it does not contain a DIN number, it is not a valid service of notice. And for that also, you have to mention it at the earliest stage. Whenever the notice is issued, you say that it is not having DIN number, this is invalid, you have to say. When it comes to state, they don't have this DIN number concept, sir. They can issue notice without DIN number. So center, it is applicable. For state, it's not applicable.
Okay, sir. When actually I got notice from Central, when I asked, sir, mention DIN number, officer, this is ASM not required to DIN number. Please ignore one. Please reply whatever reply.
Sir, actually, this is the problem, sir. Because an officer can, without following the law and procedure, they can post an order in our GST portal, and that order will appear in our GST portal and it will be due for recovery. If we have to fight the officers on these grounds, it can be done only at the appeal stages, tribunal stages, and court stages. So even if the officer has issued the notice without DIN, yes, he will be able to create a demand. So you can just add a point about it, and then you have to explain the things that is asked for by the officer, sir. In case we pass an adverse order, you can easily win an appeal because the notice was issued without a DIN. So these DIN type of things can be used only for this. We cannot make it the sole ground. I'll say that DIN is not there, so this notice is not valid. We cannot say like that. We can also add that as one of the point. That's it, sir.
Even signature also is not there, sir. Simply, sir, like name only. Even signature also is not there.
Yes.
File also. Notice also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. These are procedural grounds which will help you in the appeal stage, sir. Only in the appeal stage we can get remedy for this. At the adjudication stage, only whatever the officer says will be the order, sir. So if you ask for some documents, give it to him and explain whatever the explanation that is given. But make sure that you record this in your reply also. There is no signature, there is no DIN. Make sure that you record it in your reply.
Okay. Sir, one more thing, sir.
Yes, sir.
The 2A versus 3B differences for 1920.
Okay, sir.
For whole year, short claimed ITC, but the department said month-wise comparison. They are asking liability, why excess claimed. How to reply this notice, sir?
Yes, sir. The department, what they do is in which month that we have claimed excess ITC alone, they will pick out, and a month in which we have claimed lower than the 2A, they will not add at all. They'll just add it and give a demand. You can just say, sir, for the whole year, the ITC availed is lesser than the ITC in 2A. You can say, you can give them a whole picture of the whole year ITC, and then you can do, sir. And also, department nowadays are in a hurry. For example, for half year and all, they are just posting order. For April to December, April to January and all, they are posting an order. You can very well reply in the notice that we have the time limit till 30th November or filing of annual return, whichever is earlier, to reply to the notice or make any corrections to the error that has happened. So you legally have all the right to say that for whole year the ITC is lesser, so it is not an issue, and it is actually not an issue, sir. You can give the whole year picture to them.
And explain, sir, even circular 183, 193, everything explained, but office is not satisfied. I need to that excess ITC what claimed. You need to submit proof of documents. Simply said, sir.
Sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Actually, Circular 183 and 193 also have the point that the officer should check whether the payment has been made, the goods have been actually received, and whether it is a genuine transaction. The officer have the power to check. In Circular 183 itself, they would have told it as a line where they say that when these documents are produced, that is the certificate and invoices are produced, the officer can check the veracity of the transaction. He can check whether the goods are received or not. He can check for other conditions. So officer has the right, sir. Yes, sir. In GST, the toughest thing to prove is when it comes to ITC is actual receipt of goods, sir. So yes, they are asking for it and they can ask for it. Ask for the document, sir.
Actually, ASM assessment notice is GST portal other ITC tab is, sir. Other comparison, other tax liability comparison tab is there, sir.
Sir.
Just a copy paste only, sir. Just assessment whatever tax comparison statement, copy paste only send notice assessment. There is no what are the details not mentioned. Value only table column only mentioned notice.
Yes, sir. In that stage, you record in a reply, sir. Relied upon documents are not given the notice. You record in a reply. It will be helpful in appeal stages. That's all, sir. When it comes to adjudication officer, yes, they are powerful. What they pass is the order. So for them, we have to produce documents that they ask. If they are not getting satisfied with that documents, then we have to fight in appeals and other stages, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir. Keep it your update, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I'm one of the fan of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elamale sir, for the query.
Okay.
Next participant want to ask the query is Rajeshekharan, sir.
Yes.
So please unmute yourself and you can speak, sir. You can ask your question.
Sir, good evening.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Sir, actually, one of my client, GST has been cancelled, sir, 2 years before. Now he got the notice for the financial year 18-19 for the mismatch between the 2A, 3B, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
But right now, we have not enough the documents to provide to the department. So it is need to appear before the officer or not, sir?
Sir, yes, sir. Actually, even though our registration is cancelled, for the period for which it was live, the officer have the power to question it, and it seems that they have raised for 18-19. If we don't have the documents, it is always a tough job, sir. Because without documents, it cannot be proved anywhere. Be it appeals or anything, they will be asking for documents. So if there's no documents, it will be a hard time, sir. It will be a hard time. It will be very hard to.
But the case has been cancelled, no, sir?
Yes, sir. Even though it is cancelled, for the period for which the GSTRC was live, they can ask questions till the due date given in 73 and 74, sir. After that only they cannot ask.
Okay, sir. Then what about the notification number 49/2019, sir? That 20% of the excess ITC.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir. So what happened is in Circular 193, what they have told is, sir, for the financial year 17-18 and 18-19, any number of invoices not reflected in 2A, you can produce that certificate and invoice and get the ITC for 17-18 and 18-19. After this notification 49/2018, what they have told is, for example, in October 2019 to January 2020, you are allowed to take ITC 20% more than the ITC reflected in GST 2A.
Yes,
so what the department is saying, what the circular says now is that if you can produce the certificate and invoices for 20% of the excess ITC in 2A. If you have availed 30% ITC more than 2A, that 10% ITC is not allowed, even though if you have the certificate and invoices. Only for 20% you can produce the documents.
Produce the documents. The document means, sir, invoices enough or any other documents?
Invoices and a certificate from the supplier, sir. That certificate, the supplier
must certificate from the certificate from supplier mandatory or not, sir?
Mandatory, sir. Certificate from supplier is mandatory, and if the ITC amount for a financial year from a single supplier is more than 5 lakhs, the certificate must be given by a CA. Else the supplier alone can certify.
Because, sir, we have the 50 suppliers, sir. The amount is very less, around 150, 200 like that. So how can I get a certificate?
Sir, we have to get it, sir. We have to get from the supplier. Even though the number of supplier is huge, we have to get from that supplier, sir. Actually, the CA certificate is not an alternative for a certificate from supplier, sir. We have to get from a supplier if the ITC is less than 5 lakh. If it is more than 5 lakh, we can get from CA, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rajasekharan sir. The
Thank
next
you, sir.
participant want to ask the query is Ravi Prasad. And sir, you can unmute yourself and you can ask your question. Are you there, sir? Yeah, you are in mute status. Unmute yourself and then speak. Not audible, sir. Are you speaking or how? Okay, so till then we will move to next participant, Venus Kedia, sir. Please unmute yourself and you ask your question, sir. I think some. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, sir. Whether I am
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
Sir, my question is that on which day, on which order we can file appeal against SAMT 10 or DRC 07? Against which order we can file the appeal?
Ma'am, any order given by the department can be appealed against me.
And
DRC
sir,
07 is the.
yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. In case of ASMT 10, they give
Yes.
ASMT 12 for concluding the proceedings. If
Yes.
the reply is not satisfied that we give in ASMT 11, they move to DRC 01A. Actually, before 2022, DRC 01A was mandatory. Every officer should give DRC 01A before giving a show cause notice. Now the law is amended. Now what they say is DRC 01A is optional. Directly show cause notice can be given. So in case if you reply to ASMT 10, ASMT 10 is a notice. So ASMT 10 appeal cannot be filed. Or if you reply to ASMT 10 is not satisfied, the officer will move to next stage. They will give you show cause notice. So after you reply to show cause notice, if the officer is still not satisfied, he will give you DRC 07. Once DRC 07 is issued, you can file an appeal against DRC 07.
And then, sir, what is the time limit for filing the appeal?
And for appeal, 3 months from the date of communication of the notice, you have to file the appeal within 3 months. And the commissioner, if you show him some valid grounds like you are really sick or the grounds must be really valid. Your CA was unavailable due to his personal reasons. If you give some really valid reasons, it can be extended by 1 month. So technically 4 months, but for being safer side, it should be filed only within 3 months.
So, my one case is going on for transfer credit in the appeal form. In the appeal, is there any due date for the completion of the appeal of transfer credit of 2017-18?
Yes, ma'am. Everything has to be completed before that due date only, ma'am. That 73 and 74 date, that TRAN was filed in 1718, right, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. If it is 1718, the due date for annual return was February 2020. So if they are going to issue notice under 73, the time limit is already over. September 2023 was the last date. 30th September 2023 was the last date for issuing notice under section 73. And when it comes to 74, 5 years, February 2025 will be the last date for issuing order under section 74. Ma'am. So after that, they cannot be issuing anything regarding TRAN ITC also.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Venus ma'am. Yeah. So the last query we can take this. Manisha ma'am want to ask some query again, a further query, I think. So you can ask your question.
Hello. Sir,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have one more query regarding the debit credit note shown in the 2B.
Yes.
So suppose certain suppliers directly upload the credit note and not give to us. So client may not knowing that credit note is there. So on the basis of 2B, can we reduce the claim?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Actually, whenever credit notes are issued by the supplier, even though if it does not relate to you, in GST or 2B, ITC is automatically reducing, ma'am. And if we avail excess ITC than that is reflected in 2B, there is a condition. They can issue DRC 01C. The condition for DRC 01C is that the ITC availed by you exceeds the ITC in GST or 2B by 25 lakhs or 20 under 25%, 20%. Both these conditions should be satisfied. If it is satisfied, DRC 01C will be issued, ma'am. So, as of now, legally, the burden is on the recipient of the credit note. Anyone can just issue credit note and reduce their liability. Only those who are receiving the credit note are being punished as of now. This is a problem in GST law which has to be rectified. I don't know whether it has reached the higher people or not, but actually this is a problem. This is a problem in GST law.
No, why and vice versa. If suppose the it is not appearing in 2B, but the person has given the debit note. So in 2B, if it is not appear, suppose it is appear in the next month.
Oh, it is
but
not
then
appearing in
we
your
have
2B, but he has given a debit note, right, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, okay. The debit note is given for what purpose, ma'am? Whether it is a sale return or what, ma'am?
Sales return. Sales return.
Hello.
It is given for the sales return. It is given for the sales return, but the it is not appearing in the 2B. Then what will happen? We have to take the ITC as a reversal, or we have to wait
Ma'am,
till
1 minute, ma'am.
it
I
appears
don't
in
think
the 2B.
my internet connection is unstable. I think 1 minute, 1 minute.
Okay.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. Actually, I lost the connection right now. Actually, the debit note is being
Yeah.
issued for a sales return, right, ma'am? You have made a sale and they have
Yeah.
returned the goods and they are issuing debit note.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yes,
But
ma'am.
that is not appearing in the 2B.
Yes, ma'am. These type of debit notes should not be appearing in 2B, ma'am, because GST law, as per GST law, the one who makes the sale should issue credit note or debit note with regard to the sale. For example, if I'm giving a sale and it is a sale return for me, I should issue the credit note. It is not for the recipient to issue the debit note. So only those who are making the sale and those who have the impact on the sales should be issuing credit note or debit note. Only those documents will be appearing in a 2B, not the debit note given by the recipient. That will not be appearing in a 2B.
No, this is purchase return. Suppose in the now I'm talking about the purchase return. Purchase
It
return,
is a
it will
purchase
be
return
debit
for,
note
okay.
for yeah. So purchase not return is not appearing in 2B, but in the books, debit note is passed. So we have to reduce that claim, or it will appear in the 2B. That time we have to reduce the claim.
Yes, ma'am, correct, ma'am. If, for example, I am purchasing something and I am returning the goods, that supplier will be giving me a credit note. And only when he gives the credit note in GST or 2B, I have to reverse the ITC. I will be issuing him a debit note for a return of purchases. I will be issuing a debit note that will not have any implication anywhere.
Yeah, but suppose if he doesn't upload in the GSTR one, then I will not be able to see not to be till September. So then that reversal will not happen. So at the time of assessment, will they allow me that
Ma'am,
you
no,
have
ma'am.
not reduced this?
No, ma'am. Actually, when you are returning the goods, when you are actually making a purchase return, you are actually returning the goods that you have received. So in GST, one condition for availing ITC is that the goods must have been actually received. So if you are returning the goods, you are actually not receiving the goods. So it is better you reverse the ITC, irrespective of whether they are giving you a credit note or not.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we have answered most of the queries.
Sir, one minute, sir. My one question is there. It is outside the today's topic.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, please. Sir, due to some clerical mistake, we are unable to reverse the invoice, cancel the e-invoice and e-way bill after 24 hours. So, sir, is there any remedy for that?
Ma'am, if it is a sale invoice, you can issue a credit note against. If it is a sale invoice,
Sir,
you can
yes, sir.
issue
We issued a credit note, e-invoice credit note. We have done it. But what about the e-way bill?
e-way bill can be there, ma'am. Because have you actually transported the goods with that e-way bill, or that e-way bill is as such there, ma'am?
Sir, we have transported the. No, sir, we didn't transported the goods because
Ma'am, if it is erroneously generated and the e-way bill is there, you just leave it, no issues, ma'am. In case if any queries are asked, you can explain, ma'am. You can say that that was erroneously generated, and we have also issued a credit note, and it will not be a problem.
Should we generate a grievance in the GST portal to mention this event to the department? Or
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
not
Actually, they don't give the provision to cancel those things, ma'am.
Yes, so should we give our this problem to in the grievance portal that we have done this, and due to this mistake we are unable to cancel the email bill?
You can give a letter to your officer, ma'am, proper officer. You can just write a letter. Inadvertently, e-way bill was generated, no transportation was made. You can give a letter, and you can get the seal, and then you can file it. Yeah, yes, ma'am. So that it will be useful when any queries are asked.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So I think we can keep on discussing on the topic. The topic is so interesting, and everybody is familiar or they are actually facing this issue. So we can keep on talking, but now I think for now we can conclude. Okay, so some of the participants may want to ask their query, but they can very well email it to sir. Sir, email ID is given in the screen, that PPT, that definitely we will share with you. Okay, so thank you participant for joining and allowing us to share knowledge with you all. And a special thanks to Shiva Roopa Ganesh sir
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
for sharing such a knowledge, practical knowledge actually, and resolving most of the queries.
Yes. Thank you,
So I
sir.
think,
Thank you.
yeah.
Sir, hello.